I want to talk about genocide, homicide, and suicide. And I want to talk about to move from those three killers to wholeness through the education and socialization process. I have to think that way because I'm a teacher and I'm a psychologist. I wish I were an investor and an economist and a political scientist, and I would be able to talk more about that part of the job that we have to do. Excuse me. But I have to talk about those things that I'm closer to. And of course, these things are very important. But before I get into the substance of what I want to say, I'd like to take you back once again to something that I know many here probably already know about, which is the teachings of Ptah-hotep. The teachings of Ptah-hotep, as you know, constitute the oldest whole book in human history. And although I've read this book many times and edited a volume to try to bring some of the insights of the teachings of Ptah-hotep to a broader audience, every time I read it, I get new insights and new angles on it. Right. And not long ago, I was asked to make a speech by a brother who worked for the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta about violence. I don't know if you know it or not, but people have theories about violence that pertain to us. In fact, one of the largest studies of violence is now being done on Black people. Right. They thought they had shut it down, but they didn't. It's being run out of Boston and Chicago. DNA is being taken from young Black males to find out whether or not they are violent in their genes. And I turned down the invitation 3 times, in fact. So the main reason is I don't talk about violence as an expert. I talk about things I try to study about and know about. And I told this person that. I said, I won't do it because I'm not prepared. I said, not only that, but I probably won't take the position that you want me to take. I'm assuming I know what position you want me to take. And he said, no, you can say whatever you want to say. He said, the reason I'm interested is because I think that you will bring a different angle to this than the one we're working with right now. So to make a long story short, what I did was to insist that the position that should be taken, of course, should be anti-violence, not non-violence. Right. Anti-violence. Right. It means we don't want violence. Yeah. I'm not sure what non-violence means. All right. All right. And in order to talk about that and to deal with what I thought the real problem was, which is the definition problem. The problem of violence is pictured on the evening news as a young African male leaning over a police car with his hands cuffed behind him and someone hitting him with a flashlight. All right. Someone stabs or shoots another person, and that's violence. All right. But I thought that violence had to be redefined. All right. Because I thought oil spills were violent. All right. All right. I thought insider trading on Wall Street that makes old people lose their savings is violent. All right. All right. All right. All right. I thought that lying in Hollywood is violence. Right. All right. I thought that scholarship that closes Black Studies program down was violent. And I thought that if we're going to draw DNA, we need to draw DNA from those violent people and study what makes them so genetically violence. So I started off in trying to broaden the definition of violence by referring to what it turned out after I reread Ptahhotep was the oldest anti-violence literature on earth.
Right.
Turns out that out of all of the teachings, 37 specific teachings of Ptahhotep, half of them are specifically recipes for anti-violence.
Right.
I'm interested specifically in two of those teachings, but I want to just take a moment to go through some of the teachings so you'll get the flavor of Ptahhotep. Even if you've read it before, you may not have read it looking for its anti-violence content.
All right.
In fact, the first teaching of Ptahhotep, teaching number 2, after the general teaching, number 1, about pride and arrogance, it says, if you meet a disputant in the heat of action, one who is more powerful, simply fold your arms and bend your back, because to confront him will not make him agree with you.
All right.
And pay no attention to his evil speech. Because if you confront him while he is raging, then people will call him an ignoramus.
All right.
And your self-control will be the match for his evil utterance.
All right.
Now, if you see young men confronting each other in that way, sometimes it's good before taking that final step to take another step as the intermediate step before you have to resort to the final step.
All right.
In the second, he said, what if you meet a disputant who is your equal, one on your level? You will overcome him by being silent while he is speaking evil. And then there will be much talk among those who hear, and your name will be held in high regard among the great. And then the third condition, if you meet a disputant in action who is a poor man, who is not your equal, you're more strong than he.
All right.
Then do not attack him because he is weak. Leave him alone.
All right.
He will confound himself.
All right.
Do not answer him just so that you can relieve your heart. Do not vent yourself against your opponent.
All right.
Wretched is he who injures a weak man. If you ignore him, then listeners will wish to do what you want, and you will beat him through their opinion of him.
All right.
Now I'm going to skip this next one because it's probably one of the two most important nonviolent, or not nonviolent, anti-violent teaching. You got to make sure I watch my language.
All right.
If you are a person of trust, sent by one great person to another great person, be careful to stick to the essence of the message that you were asked to transmit. Give the message exactly as he gave it to you. Guard against provocative speech, which makes one great person angry with another. Just keep to the truth. We used to call that agitation.
All right.
Signifying even.
All right.
You could get to that level.
All right.
So that true messages and guarding against provocation, even though there may have been a provocation in the message, Ptahhotep says, do not repeat the outburst that the person who sent the message gave because you don't want to provoke violence. That's an anti-violence teaching.
All right.
How about in child rearing? If you are a wise man, train up a son who will be pleasing to God. If he is straight and takes after you, and you then must take good care of him. Do everything that is good for him, because he is your son. Your soul begot him. Do not withdraw your heart from your son, but an offspring can make trouble. If your son strays and neglects your counsel and disobeys all that is said with his mouth spouting evil speech, then punish him for his talk. God will hate him who crosses you, and whose guilt was determined in the womb. He who God makes boatless cannot cross the water. here's another little formula for anti-violence.
All right.
If you're a person who judges, listen carefully to the speech of one who pleads. Do not stop the person from telling you everything that they had planned to tell you. A person in distress wants to pour out his or her heart even more than they want their case to be won.
All right.
If you're one who stops a person who is pleading, that person will say, why does he reject my plea? Of course, not everything that one pleads for can be granted, but a good hearing soothes the heart. So just good listening
All right.
is an anti-violence prescription.
All right.
Let me then go to, there are others, but let me go to the two anti-violence teachings that I want to emphasize tonight. One is Ptahotep number 5. Says, if you are a man who leads,
All right.
a man who controls the affairs of many,
Right.
then seek the most perfect way of performing your responsibility.
All right.
Let your conduct be blameless.
All right.
Great is Ma'at,
All right.
truth, justice, and righteousness. Ma'at has been unchanged since the time of God. And then the anti-violence aspect, to create obstacles to the following of the laws is to open a way to a condition of violence. I'll say it again.
Right. Go ahead.
See, the person who breaks the law may be violent,
All right.
but the person who created the obstacles
All right.
that provoke another person into breaking laws is also a violent person.
All right.
That's what Ptahotep said.
All right.
To create obstacles,
All right.
to make it impossible, to take people's food so that they have to steal to eat,
All right.
to prevent people from working,
All right. Yes.
to break up families by destroying the young men,
All right.
is to create the conditions that then produce the violence, and that person is just as violent as the violence that they create.
All right. All right.
And it says the transgressor of laws, that is the one who did the first violent act,
All right.
is punished.
All right.
Although the greedy person, and let's listen to that word greed because it'll come up in the next teaching.
All right.
The greedy person misses that fact. Baseness may obtain riches,
All right.
but crime never lands its wares on the shore. In the end, that person who produces the condition that leads to violence will be disturbing Ma'at.
All right.
And in the end, Ma'at lasts. Ma'at is my father's ground.
All right.
And finally, anti-violence. If you want to have perfect conduct, to be free from every evil, then above all, guard against the vice of greed. Greed is a grievous sickness that has no cure. There is no treatment for it. It embroils the father. Greed embroils the father. Greed provokes violence. It embroils the fathers and mothers. It embroils the mothers and the brothers of the mothers. It parts the wife from the husband. Greed is the compound of all evils.
All right.
It is a bundle of all hateful things.
All right.
That person endures whose rule is rightness, who walks a straight line, so that person will leave a legacy by such behavior. On the other hand, the greedy person has no tomb.